Bam.
This is Patrick Richardson, and you're watching the Break It Down Show.
So you have a long decades of experience being a state and local news guy. You've been a reporter. You've cut your teeth. You've helped cub reporters become bear reporters. You've done all this stuff. You've been an editor. And so when I look, I've worked on the spy side. I've worked on the psyop side. By the way, being a spy, being a reporter. My degree is in, who cares about my stupid undergrad degree, but it's in mass communication, TV, radio, right? So you and I have a lot of ability to talk about news and these kind of things. And so when we see bad news, it's infuriating to us because we like the thing I always say is you can't exchange your integrity for clicks for
Right.
long. I mean, you might every now and then, but the more you do that, the more I'm just like, I can't listen to David Muir because he puts a lot of fear and bullshit in his news, and so I just quit listening to it and haven't missed it.
Yeah, I mean, and I would contend you can't ever trade your integrity for engagement, or the first time you've done it, you don't have any anymore.
Right.
I mean, not that you don't chase a story that's like, I mean, I got to write one time that Bill Clinton was arrested in Pittsburgh, Kansas. And it wasn't William J. Clinton. It wasn't William Jefferson Clinton. But he was arrested after a short car chase. And by short car chase, I mean half a block when he pulled in and parked.
No.
But, I mean, you can't pass up the opportunity when you get something like that. We love that stuff, journalists. So you're gonna do the kind of the funny story.
Yeah.
This A's thing is just BS from the beginning.
Yeah. By the way, let me bring in Booney here real quick so we can introduce him. Booney runs Locked On A's and has done a great job. I think, Booney, both of us have had a journey where we wanted the A's to be in Oakland. Mine was a long time ago, but I also left, to go be a spy and do all that kind of stuff. And so by separation, I'm like, this just isn't going to happen. So I saw it and got over it a long time ago. But you have a more recent transition where you saw the A's becoming a reality. And then you started looking into the narratives and you're like, this is narrative. This is not fact. And so I thought you'd be a great help to, as we break down some of these stories, to be able to say, yeah, that actually didn't go that way. There are so many of these rumored things that have proven to be either not as true as they need to be or just flat out made up. That I don't know. I appreciate you coming on the show and talking about this stuff with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I was at the beginning, I was like most other people with regard to the A's move. I listened to the narrative and the podcast out there in the news and the blame Fisher and so forth. And I bought it and I was behind it. Until only you see certain things and certain lies out there that are brought out there. You're like, well, hang on a second. It didn't happen like that until you actually dig deep, and only about a quarter of what they're saying is true. And they kind of fill the rest of the spots in with their own narrative and how they want to make it look. I think for me, it started with regards to Fisher having to liquidate stock and pay capital gain in order to pay for the stadium. And coming from that background and dealing with that for about 25 years as far as what I did, I know that backward and forward, and know that there are tools in place and in order for that not to happen. So right when you see that type of thing, I'm like, these people are just beyond not even educated, nor do not even want to put in the work to find out what it actually is. Then you start questioning and digging deep to the whole thing. And you're like, God, I mean, it couldn't be more wrong. And you start questions like, is this just about clicks? Is this just about to get an audience? Because media right now is difficult. It's hard. It's hard to maintain an audience. And if you oppose the crowd.
Oh boy. Yeah. Uh-oh. Oh yeah.
Yeah. You're going to lose your audience if you oppose the crowd. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah. I want to bring Patrick over. Go ahead, Pat.
Well, I mean, I look at this Guardian piece. I always call them the Gruniad after the misspelling of their own name the one time. They're a joke. And it's just the whole piece. I said, you talked to me last night when we discussed this about, if you were an editor and one of your reporters turned this in. And my response is none of my reporters would have turned this in because I taught them better than that.
Yeah.
You know, and I sent it to one of my reporters, and she just was like, "Well, Jesus, boss, this reads like an opinion piece."
Yeah.
They didn't say it was opinion. I said, "No." She says, "You'd have shot us with a Nerf gun." That was my, if you did something wrong, I shot you with a Nerf gun. If we turned this in, you'd have shot us with a Nerf gun. I said, "You wouldn't have turned it in, Keisha. You wouldn't have. You knew my expectations, and I don't understand where the editor was on this." Because I would not have allowed this to go out.
Let's take a look at it real quick. So I put the link up for anybody who wants to look at the article. It's right there. You can see it in the comments and notes. But you've got it in front of you. How far in do you get before the first alarm bell goes off that this is not, and I'm just going to say it, this is not pro grade work. And there's students that are excited to see this thing, and because it's a takedown, right? But This is not news.
No, it isn't. And I got to the second sentence.
Yeah. Okay. Real quick, I mean, in reality, that article is rife with sensationalism. It's cherry pick quotes and outright factual distortions. You know, if you take a hard look at the facts, it shows a very different story. One, you know, again, of a negotiated deal and committed financing. It's just, like I said, back up your point, what you're saying, Patrick, it's filled with distortions, sensationalism. It's awful. It's really bad.
Let's be specific. What's the first distortion that either of you can find? What's the first?
The first thing that set me off was the first two sentences. Literally the first two sentences. It had just turned 8 a.m. on a crystal clear late June Monday morning, but it was already 85 F, 29 C, despite the tolerable heat for the desert. Okay. I lived in Phoenix, Arizona for a year. 85 in the desert isn't tolerable. It's cool. It's comfortable.
Yeah.
There's no humidity, folks.
Yeah.
I mean, that right there told me this guy is trying to, he's being alliterative, and he's being literary, and he's trying to set the scene, but he doesn't know anything.
Booney, what was your first point?
For me, it was just simply the Guardian repeatedly insists the project is on shaky financial footing, right? But Nevada and Clark County has agreed to contribute up to $380 million in public funding. The A's, only after, of course, the A's have spent $100 million of their own money. And as late 24, the A's spent what was reported $40 million into plants. Fisher has upped his equity pledge by $100 million to about $1.1 billion. In short, Fisher and his team are shouldering the lion's share up front, exactly what the funding deal requires. The official budget's $1.75 billion. Fisher recently came up and said about it could go up to $2 billion. $1.4 billion from the Fisher family, $380 million from Nevada, $300 million in a construction loan arranged by Goldman Sachs and U.S. Bank. And I'm not even, not even counting Aramark in their contribution so far, not even counting the earthquakes. They don't even need that. So what you're suggesting, what the public and what the article is suggesting, is that the banks are committing financial fraud by approving this individual because, again, they have to go through their due diligence to make sure Fisher has the money. I mean, it is no easy task as far as getting approved from the banks. Same thing with the city. They are making a lot of loose accusations as far as due diligence not done by government organizations and banking organizations. So it's just
So let's dive back into this piece. So Patrick, the reporter hands you this thing, and you're like, "I'm 2 sentences in, dude. I'm gonna have my Nerf gun and start shooting."
Yeah.
This thing? I mean, what should this read like? Like, if you want to be contrary and you want to be hard on the Fisher plan and all that stuff, what does that look like?
Well, the first thing is you don't do stuff like you get down here and they've got this tweet from Doug Popple. The heavy equipment, is he the one that wrote this thing? I don't know. I didn't even look.
No.
Whoever it was is an idiot, but that's neither here nor there. But this Doug Popple says the heavy equipment staged behind A's owners John Fisher at today's stadium groundbreaking was rented as props for the day. In bold, gotta push that. And isn't being used in construction, a PR person confirmed. And we've got these video. First thing I go to my reporter is, okay, but is there construction work going on?
Right.
And we've got video showing construction work's going on. And as far as, well, the construction equipment was rented, look, most major construction companies lease or rent the heavy equipment. Why? Because they don't need the same stuff on the same job every time.
Right.
This stuff is scheduled months out because the company that owns it has loans on it. And if it's not moving, it's not earning.
Right.
So there, we know that there's construction going on, but we're implying that there isn't.
Right.
And later in this story, they flat out say there's no construction going on. Well, we know that's bullcrap because we've got video.
When you talk about this, so and look, I'm not a reporter, right? But I play a reporter in real life because that's what being a spy is. And so, and look, I don't make a big deal about this. And also the sources I use, I'm not trying to put them in front of any kind of negative resource from these anti-A's folks, right? Because that's just the shitty thing. So for the most part, I just grant them anonymity because I'm not making any money on this.
Right.
But I talked to a guy and I'll just say United Rentals a long time ago. And I said, hey, what's the vibe? Do you feel like the A's are going to, and he's like, oh yeah. Oh, we've already been talking to the construction company. We're already pre-booking all of these. Because like you said, that stuff's got to work. And if it's not working in Las Vegas, it is in Phoenix. And when it finishes up in Phoenix, they're going to put it on a truck that day and bring it on over. Because the more days that thing works, the sooner it breaks, the sooner they fix it, the sooner they get back to work, right?
Yeah, I mean,
and
sure,
that's how
the construction company have some stuff. Yeah, sure, they do. They've got, got some roof movers and that kind of thing. But they don't have giant track hose. They don't have,
you gotta have a 60-foot scissor lift, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing I would say too is it's fine for a PR event to hire out some bucket loaders if that's what they did. And let's say like, hey, the construction company's like, no, you can't borrow one for 4 hours. Go get your own. And that's a totally normal thing for a PR. I don't know why anybody's surprised about this. And I have to say one more thing about this whole thing. That whole event happens in a tented space on this construction site. And I don't know if you know this or not, Patrick, but when the A's first moved in with Sutter, they built tented extra space for the reporters. And some of the reporters there, they're being less than honest, acted like they'd never been in a tented space before at a temporary, I see the face you're making, right? It's such bullshit. You go to any golf event, you go to the Super Bowl, any of these big things, they have to use tented space because there's not enough buildings to put everybody in to keep them close enough. So they called it, Patrick, they called it a fucking tool shed.
Look, it's not even major sporting events. Other than a couple of college games,
a backyard wedding in my house.
The most major sporting event I have ever covered was the Wichita Nike Open. Okay, now this is actually kind of up there because this is the Nike series is like the minor league for PGA. You win that series or win enough events in that series, and you get promoted. You get to go play in the league PGA.
So big deal to these guys for sure.
Yeah, so I went and covered a local guy that was playing in this and had a chance to get promoted. They had tented space,
of course,
and I wasn't air conditioned. That would have been nice, but they did have tented space for the reporters. This is normal stuff.
This is normal stuff. The reason I brought it up is that nobody peeped about it during the groundbreaking because it's not a real story.
Yeah.
It's just someone trying. Yeah. Right. It's publicity, right? Yeah. And so when you see the tented space and no one mentions it, like it's supposed to be a negative thing. And by the way, everybody raved about Sutter until the A's moved in because it's an active AAA park. Everybody in Northern California loves that place. And it has been that way for almost 2 decades. So that's, again, it's like trying to create a narrative out of something like now it sucks because the A's are there. So anyhow, I didn't want to get too distracted by that, but this is some of the stuff that you see like, hey, you're in a tent. How come you're not complaining about that now? Maybe they rented some heavy equipment. That's normal for a PR event. You know what? When they have those showgirls show up at a Las Vegas anything, they're paying those girls to show up. They don't just stand around. So,
right. Right.
I want to give Booney some room here to talk because I've been kind of dominating a little bit. But Booney, when you see these things, and we're just talking about this one story in the Guardian, who, as Patrick said, misspelled their own name, not in this story, but before. When does the credibility stop for you? Like when do you stop going to a news source? How much grace do you give?
I think what media has just turned into is just a group of common people looking to chase into one particular story and one narrative that they agree on. And Fisher meets the perfect type of villain. As far as the credibility, where I stop is when the narrative is only on one side, right? You never hear anything anymore in news or in media where they are taking a look at both sides of the story, because every side, no matter what it is, has two sides. So when you only hear one half of it, that's where I kind of stop.
Well, and I wanted to jump back for just a second to a point you made, Booney, about the financing. Okay, I have covered in 30 years in the business, over 30 now. I'm old. I have covered multiple stadium projects, multiple private, public-private partnership things. I didn't know these figures. I have never seen one where the public input was so small.
Right.
They're complaining about the money that he's putting up. He's putting up the
lion's share of it. Yeah.
Quarters more.
Yeah.
I mean, he's asking for $500 million roughly from the taxpayers. That's nothing in one of these projects.
No.
Now do it in Vegas.
Projects, no.
They're going to pay that thing back fast.
The Chiefs and the Royals are both trying to get Kansas City, and they've got a bidding war going between Kansas and Missouri. I would like to see them come to the Kansas side, even though I'm a Yankees fan. But they're asking for the majority of it from the taxpayers. They're expecting incentives from the taxpayers, and God help us, both legislatures are just giving it to them. So I don't even begin to understand the complaint. And I just noticed something else as I'm looking at this. Got this Neil deMause. This is another red flag for me right here.
Right.
Okay.
This could be an entire 10-part Netflix docu-series. Says Neil deMause, lousy AP style here, it should be said, editor of Field of Schemes. What the hell? Reporter comes to me with that. This guy's from Field of Schemes. I haven't even looked at his site. I don't need to, because the name right there and your reaction to it, Booney, tells me everything I need to know.
The dog catching the car quote.
Yeah, the very name of it, and believe me, I'm to some degree with him. I think most of these stadium proposals are schemes. The developers make out, the team owner makes out, the public loses. This one's a little different. This one's a lot different. Vegas is different. So I get it. But you are immediately going to somebody who is going to be negative on this, and you're quoting him extensively. Go get me the counterpoint right now.
I want to jump in here. When you and I were talking, and I was trying to do my best to not color your opinion at all, but you would send me a series of texts that were like, hey, obviously John Fisher's a bad owner, obviously. And I said, well, hold on. And I had to back you off that position. And you even said yourself, and I've done the same thing. You're right. I jumped ahead, and I'm probably infected by this narrative a little bit, right? Yep. It's so easy to do. It's so easy to hate someone. And I've learned that the word billionaire is used to create, this is the PSYOP part of this, right? Like when you guys want to talk about information operations, when you see the word billionaire, you are being manipulated to cause an affect. They want you to respond with an emotion. It's like, here comes the bad guy in vaudeville, and everybody goes, oh, that's what the billionaire or oligarch. These words are designed to upset you instead of inform you.
Well, as I told you last night, I mean, the only thing I dislike about billionaires is that I'm not one.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, I never got a job from a poor man.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with the billionaire end of it. I've got friends in Oakland who are very upset that the A's were leaving, you know, so that kind of colored my opinion on this. But yes, I had to step back and say, well, wait a minute. The only reporting you see, and this is part of what Booney was talking about, the only reporting you see is this, oh, John Fisher bad, John Fisher bad, John Fisher bad. Well, maybe, I mean, the A's suck. They've been terrible for a while now. So maybe he is a bad owner. I don't know.
Yeah.
But then how much, you know, I've been a baseball fan for a long time. How much does the owner, if he's not George Steinbrenner or Marge Schott, really influence the team?
Yeah, day-to-day operations,
What,
right?
what,
Yeah.
what defines a bad owner? What defines a bad CEO? What defines any of that? Is it
Mhm.
a product you put on the field that wins and loses money? Does that make you a successful owner or a successful CEO or a successful leader? Or is it maximizing profitability? Does that make in a losing franchise? What is the definition of being a successful owner or a successful businessman? Because right now, all other MLB owners look at John Fisher as a success. The fans look at him as a failure. Excuse me. The fans look as a failure. As far as how I look at it, as far as a fan, yeah, I don't like a lot of the stuff he's done. As far as a businessman now, he is trying to maximize profitability, and you cannot. There's nothing there factually besides opinion that can overtake that fact. I mean, what the franchise, what it's worth now compared to when he bought it, it proves that itself.
Booney, let's do a little owner test. Do the A's suck? Like Patrick said, are they a terrible franchise?
In contrary, I mean, if you really, that's how the media looks at it. But if I told Patrick right now that the A's have made the postseason 7th most in Major League Baseball since 2000, he's probably surprised at that,
Yeah,
like most other
yeah,
people
absolutely.
are, right? And to me, that is the measure of success in baseball, right? I mean, it is tough to win in the playoffs. It's a little bit more of a crapshoot. They have been successful beyond anything you could imagine. As far as recent years, sure, they've been really, really bad. Can you make the argument that, well, okay, the success and them winning was, lightning in a bottle. It was an accident.
Yeah, but you can make that case with the Royals too, and the
Correct.
Royals just about knocked my Yankees out last year.
Yeah.
So
how you look at success as far as winning and losing, that speaks for itself. The A's on the field, as far as the product they have put on the field, has been beyond successful. Now, has it been the flashy free agents anybody wants? No. And let's take out last couple of years, which has been really, really bad since 2022.
yeah, so I mean, and that's the thing is right there. Even a journalist, even a trained journalist, can get, and one who strives to be. And I always say you can't be objective, you can be fair, right? Because objectivity, nobody's objective, but you can be fair.
Yeah.
So even someone who strives to remember to be fair and look at the facts, I'm not an A's fan. I don't follow the A's. So I'm running on just the bits and pieces I see here and there. And that's my fault. My fault.
Patrick, let me jump in here. So when your Cub reporter, because that's what I'm gonna call him in this case, David Langle, who writes this piece in the Guardian, when he comes up and he has the words, and John Fisher throwing a hissy fit and going off to Las Vegas.
It's editorializing. No, we don't say that. We do not say. That's the biggest problem with this thing. And I used to tell my young reporters all the time. They come to me and they'd have some editorializing in there, and I'd say, "Well, who said that?"
Yeah.
Well, but it's true. I don't care if it's true. It may be true, but we don't say things. Other people say things, and we report on it. But we do not interject opinion. Period.
How hard are you on this article at this point? He got the hissy fit, and I had to take a pause. I'm like, I can't read any more of this because it's just so bad, right? If I'm a boss, I'm like, hey, we need to have a conversation. I'm going to get you in a second, Booney.
Okay.
We need to have a conversation about how you're going to go forward in this business. Like if you handed me 2 of these, I'd be ink on paper. Like, hey, we're going to start talking about actions and development, and either you're going to develop or you're going to develop a new job. Right. I mean, that's how I would be. But how would you? And I swear, Booney, you're going to get next right now. Patrick, how would you handle this, editor-wise?
Well, I would have already probably thrown it back to him. And the glaring problem in this is nowhere in this entire piece is John Fisher quoted. Nowhere in this entire piece did anyone talk. Are you going to get him personally on the record? Probably not. You're going to get an email that says you can attribute this to John Fisher. It wasn't written by him. He signed off on it. It was by his press people. But no one made an attempt to get a hold of John Fisher. And at that point, I am sitting this guy down and doing exactly what you said. This is an abomination. This is your... And I was always an easygoing boss. I wasn't the screaming, I worked for screamy guys. I didn't like it, and I didn't want to be that guy. Cranky. I can be cranky editor dude. I don't like cranky editor dude. So I would be sitting him down and saying, I used to very rarely, somebody hit me something that was really monumentally bad. I would print it out double spaced, grab the red pen, and sat to cut and say, here you go. This, I'd have gotten out a lighter. Start over.
Right. Booney, finally. Sorry.
No, good. No, I wanted to talk a little bit about that hissy fit quote and a couple things else the Guardian spoke about. The Guardian's line that Oakland handed Fisher $750 million in grants is misleading. That figures appears to combine the partial infrastructure commitments, but in reality, the city and port leaders had floated financing and even an environmental review to expedite the waterfront stadium. The fact remains the Guardian piece is absolutely riddled with suggestive language and innuendo, phrases like Fisher has to realize he's a dead man walking and calling the groundbreaking a farce and hyperbolic. And, it's all unsubstantiated. In reality, the fact of the matter is the groundbreaking actually happened in last month in June, obviously, as we all know. Fallacy, saying Fisher threw a hissy fit glosses over the legitimate frustrations. It's equally fair to say the city repeatedly stalled while the Coliseum deteriorated. Fact, costs have risen modestly, 1.5 to 1.75, potentially to 2 billion. Fallacy, guessing that someone will come in as the savior is pure speculation. There is no evidence MLB or others plan a takeover. They are clearly frustrated at Fisher's multi-billion-dollar commitment. Every Guardian claim of incompetence or a vanity project, like they like to call it, is countered by public statements from league officials and local reporters. It's just ridiculous.
Well, and they speculate about the size of the stadium, and I grant it'll be the smallest stadium in the MLB. It's on the Strip. You've only got so much room, folks. But how are we going to close it's probably too small. Who said it was probably too small for the opening and closing of a roof? Who said it? Nobody said it. They just wrote it.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody said it. And the plans show the roof that opens and closes.
Yeah.
An architect drew that. Now, I worked construction enough when I was younger to know that sometimes what the architect draws and what you can actually build ain't the same thing, but not in a project like this. They know how to build it. It's been engineered. It's going to get done. And you talk about we've had the groundbreaking. No, right now there is nobody planning to push John Fisher out right now. If he bails on this after this commissioner came to the groundbreaking, the A's will have a new owner. It's that simple.
It's telling when you don't see a lot of the local reporting from Las Vegas, from their media side, presented in these things, and look, not telling in a good way. And then I sent you the video that Dammy Amendolara made, right? And so if your Cub reporter wrote a piece and your senior sports writer did that video, I know you're going to have that ass. I know it. I know you're going to be, listen, we're going to have to go somewhere else. We can't do this here. We're going to have to go down to the Arby's and sit down at a table because you're about to get it, Yeah. So tell me what happens when one of your senior reporters does this thing.
Oh, he's given a choice. Retract it or be gone.
Firing offense.
Yeah. Absolutely. Bad, you sit down and you do a video like that is sourced from a story this bad, make my newspaper look bad. You are going to mea culpa until you are going to kiss every ass I can find right in the middle, or you're gone. And that may not be enough for me. That video, I couldn't get all the way through it. It was so egregiously bad. I was like, shut it off.
Yeah.
I take that back. There wouldn't even be an opportunity to fix it. It would be in my office. You're gone. pack your shit. You got 10 minutes to get out. Security is coming to walk you.
Booney.
The Demon Amendola. Wow. Yeah. You know, for me, it's constant hypocrisy in this whole thing. For 1 second, when the A's left Oakland and the critics were like, well, he's a billionaire. Why can't he just fork out the difference? Why can't he just pay for it? He could, if he really wanted the team in Oakland, he could make that happen. And then on the other side of their mouth, they talk, he's going to Vegas. He can't afford it in Vegas. So which one is it? Can he afford it or can't he afford it? Right.
Right.
You talk about Amendola. One of the big things they were talking about was Alexander Marks and the schools over the stadiums. And Marks quipped, it's odd Fisher claims fixed cost. And Amendola comes in and says, hey, he mocks Fisher as uniquely savvy as, you know, as far as misdirection. And the reality of the fact is the opposite. Construction costs are rising, and Fisher has come out and budgeted for that, right? He has come out and said, hey, it could be $2 billion. Actually, he said it's most likely to be $2 billion. So everything is one contradiction after one contradiction. Yeah, I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, and I found a website. I was looking at construction costs because I wanted to see, well, you know, are they still coming up? Are they going down? They're largely flat. There's been between quarter 4, 2024 and the end of quarter 1, 2025. We don't have the quarter 2 numbers. Construction costs are up for this type of construction, right? Non-residential, commercial construction. Overall, up about 2%.
Yeah. And you write that in the article. That's what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even if you don't get that in the article, I mean, you should, but you've got limited space. I get it. Yeah. You know, you can only do so much. But and you need to note somewhere in that article that the A's are not the only team fleeing Oakland. I mean, we've got the Raiders. Wasn't there a hockey team or something that left Oakland to go to Vegas?
The Warriors went to San Francisco across the
Warriors went to San Francisco, across the bay.
I mean,
and they had 2 different starts to get their new arena built. It wasn't easy for them.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a reason teams are fleeing Oakland. Yeah. And it's not
John Fisher.
Somehow I doubt that. You know, but you're right. It's the whole, he's a billionaire. So what? How is that? I mean, that would have been my first thing. Billionaire. The first time I see billionaire John Fisher, how is that relevant?
Yeah. Right.
Why is his net worth relevant? And the other thing that drives me nuts about this, well, you know, why can't he just pay for it? You idiots fail basic economics.
Yeah.
Billionaire.
You brought up economics. Let's get J.C. Bradbury in there because he's the next person down, checked in this hacky Guardian piece.
Right.
And he's the economist, right? So look, I'm not a reporter, but I know how to do reporting. I go and I look at his X account. I'm off to blue sky. Oh, first warning sign. And tariffs bad. Oh God. Okay, here what we look. I don't care politically where you're at, right? But it is a tell, especially when you only have this negative point of view about this person. And so it tells me that there's not reporting going on here. And whatever kind of economist he is, all kinds of economists disagree about things. That's fine, right? But we've got a problem where, I mean, we talk about bias all the time. It appears this person might have a case of bias. And then you dig deeper and guess what happens?
He's got a case of bias.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, well, and you know, I come back to this because this is
I don't see one more thing. I swear to God, I'm going to try to be a good host, but I have to say this. That's the part about integrity. I'm a lefty-leaning guy. I'm J.C. Bradbury. I hate Donald Trump. Okay, great. But you will never catch me. This is Pete talking. You will never catch me compromising my integrity. And if you do, you caught me slipping, not my best. But it's not going to be the norm. And so even though I believe this, I'm going to show you, like Booney said earlier, I'm going to show you both sides of this thing. Here's why I don't think it's going to work, but here's why it might. I might even hedge so that it's 60-80 or 60-40, something like that. But I'm going to do a good job on both sides because I don't want you to be able to use the obvious cudgel of you are a partisan bigot and you don't know what you're talking about. I'm not saying that about him, but I don't want to give anybody that stick to hit me with.
Absolutely.
Please.
Absolutely. And he says he's an economist. Look, this whole billionaire can, well, why can't he just pay it out of his own pocket? He's not Scrooge frickin' McDuck with a big vault thing diving into his gold coins for a swim. His money's in things. The example I always use is like, look, because Jeff Bezos is an easy one. Bezos decides he wants a new yacht. He doesn't write a check. What he does, he calls his money guy and says, I want to spend $250 million on a new yacht. The money guy calls the bank that Bezos probably owns or has a significant stake in and says, Jeff wants a new yacht. I need a $250 million loan, short term. So he gives him a 60 or 90-day loan. Money guy moves a few things around so that he can come up with the $250 million. Pays back the bank. Probably they take a tax break on the interest, and now he's got his yacht. His money's working. That's why he's a billionaire. He's miscalculated, doesn't understand. The man didn't become a billionaire because he doesn't understand.
Yeah. This is it is a good point here by Vegas A's fan. When these Bay Area people talk about 10th market, number 10 market. Well, nobody showed up. Nobody showed up. That is where you can blame you all didn't. We didn't show up, right? So number 10 market doesn't fucking matter. Number 40 market, okay, but that 40 market gets 45 million people on the strip, and they have the world's greatest visitors and convention authority. Unlike Oakland, they've landed the Sphere, a multi-billion-dollar project that brings elite talent to their city that brings tons of people in. They grabbed Formula One. Oh my God. I mean, these are coups. How many cities in America can have Formula One? Right now it's 3. There won't be 5. Maybe New York City gets one, and they're not going to go down like right down through Manhattan. Well, maybe they will. I can't imagine that they'll pull that off, right? So this is a very special place. It does very special things. You can have at that place McDonald's is gigantic convention. I've been there when this happens. And if you're in the right hotel, there's McDonald's fucking people everywhere. You go one hotel over, not a soul. Just a bunch of dudes in the link chain and fence convention, all partying and seeing different. There's so many people going through that place. They're going to be fine in terms of that. And so when you don't account for the tourism part, when I lived there, this is 20 years ago, before there were any baseball teams, before it was like a sports leading city, there were 94 people a minute coming in on airplanes. That was the average, 94 a minute, just showing up over and over again. And it's an amazing place when it comes to that. Sorry, I had to say that because I wanted to make sure I brought that comment.
It's a really good point because, my wife and I were talking about this when I told her I was coming on. And am I going to fly to Denver to go to a Rockies game? Well, nobody's going to Rockies games, but that's neither here nor there.
Right.
No, I'm not. Oakland isn't exactly a tourist hub. I'm not going to Oakland to watch an A's game. But we love going to ball games, whether it's high school basketball or pro baseball or little league. We love going to ball games. So if we happen to be in Vegas and the A's were playing, we'll probably take in a game.
Yeah.
Why not? We're here.
I want to go back and bring Booney in because Booney knows finance so well. I noticed something. I don't know if you noticed this, but when you started talking about SLOCs, right? And I know a number of entrepreneurs. I know how those things, I am aware of those things, I should say. The second you started saying that, Pratt and all these other people all of a sudden started talking about it.
Right.
And they still didn't think he could pull it off, right? So you were way ahead, and you would have been a great source to talk to. Hey, how does a billionaire, how do they finance these things? So talk a little bit about the finance, and then what do you think about JC Bradbury's work?
As far as JC, I mean, everything Bradbury's talking about is speculative, right? There's nothing accurate with regard to he is saying. The quote unquote, like we talked about earlier, the dead man walking, meaning he's going to be replaced by a different owner or approach, right? It's correctly reported, but the inference that he won't finish the project is absolutely speculative. And the other thing I want to touch about is we constantly hear about the Vegas size, the market size, and the MLB strategy. But everyone forgets and does not include, and I believe you guys just mentioned it, the 40 million annual visitors Vegas gets. I mean, they're already hosting 3 pro teams, Raiders, Golden Knights, and the Aces, man. I mean, as far as a place where a professional franchise should be, Vegas is an absolute gold mine. But that's besides the point. SBlock is nothing new. And it is a common tool that most people with any type of stock portfolio uses, right? Compare it to a home equity line of credit. If you own a home, you get a home equity line of credit, you borrow against your home, no tax implications whatsoever. The assets you borrow aren't counted as debt, right? Because you're borrowing from yourself. There's no difference with an S block. The only difference is a home, you're borrowing against your house. On an S block, you're borrowing against your portfolio. So if you have a portfolio worth $1 million, let's say, you can borrow $700 million. It's not counted as a liability. It's not counted as taxes. Nothing is against you. It's how Steve Ballmer bought the Clippers. It is how Elon Musk bought Twitter. There was another professional franchise. I believe the Panthers were bought that way as well. There's another franchise. I don't recall off the top of my head. So this isn't anything new. This is something that is always used. And that's how Fisher is going to fund this thing. And when his family got involved, it became a slam dunk. There's not a lot of money they need to pull to get this funded. Them looking for investors is optional, is something they don't have to have. They are searching out there, and if it makes sense, if it makes business sense, they will do. But they can fund this 3 times over if they wanted.
Yeah.
But I'm reading towards the bottom of this page, and I really want to kind of be done with the Guardian piece, but there's so much bad stuff in it. I can't leave it alone. Fisher, who on the surface has far less business acumen than Sternberg, the owner of the Braves, has seen construction prices rise from the original 33,000 capacity stadium, which would be the smallest in MLB, from 1.5 to 1.75 million, figured announced 6 months ago. And look, that number is going to go up because time frames and everything else is going to happen. It's going to but this is not going to be a surprise to anybody. These guys know what they're doing. All right, the next part. With an unstable inflationary environment, potential tariff costs, and heavy debate over interest rates, Alexander Marks, who heads up schools over stadiums, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so I have looked around. I've talked to a number of economists, and there's no inflation right now. There's a massive investment in American production. That seems like massive, like trillions and trillions of dollars. And so this thing everybody was talking about, the tariffs haven't impacted prices. Maybe this will all change. But so far, it appears to be working. We have countries desperate to do business with us, giving us better terms. So all of that stuff, at least for now, and I'm going to ask both of you guys, and I'll let you go first, Booney, because I know Patrick's going to have a good answer. But what are your thoughts on that kind of nonsense?
I tell you what it is. I tell you what my answer is. Who cares? I don't care if Fisher makes $250 million more in profit or $250 million less on a profit based on his project, as much as he cares about the next guy adding an additional wing on their home, whether construction cost on that, if they're going to make an additional 50 grand or not. Right. I don't care. I know he can pay for it. I know he can afford it. And if he is making more of a profit or less of a profit, I can care less.
That's his problem, not ours.
Yeah, exactly. It's going up. What his profit is as a businessman, I'm sure he's going to be fine. I'm sure I can care less about how much he thinks about my profit.
Right.
Well, this construction inflation thing, and I sent it to you.
Here it comes. This for everybody's reference. This is what Patrick's going to talk about right here.
Yeah, I mean, this is. I was just rolled back up on it because this is really an interesting site. It's got these charts showing construction inflation for various materials and residential buildings and this kind of thing since Q1 of 2021. Ready mix concrete. Now that one's up. Oh, excuse me. No, I take that back. Paving mixtures is way up. Ready mix concrete has been relatively flat in price. It's been a little bit volatile, but about 0.5% up and down. You know, that kind of thing. But it's roughly the same price now that it was in 2021. Steel mill products are down 35% since Q1 of 2021. Fabricated structural steel, which they're going to need a lot of, is down roughly 15% since Q2 of 2021. So people are talking about this inflation.
So you're saying it's getting cheaper.
Wow.
But we got tariffs, and you know, we got these tariffs, whatever. We still steel pipe and tube down about 20%, a little over 20% since Q2 2021.
Cite your source. There it is. No link down below. You guys can take a look at that, and you
Yeah.
can see that.
And so this is all stuff that they're going to need in a large quantity.
Yeah.
For this stadium, and it's all down.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is your reporter hat, right? So you and I both have done this stuff. Booney, I know you've talked to people. So among the people I've talked to, like I said, United Rentals guy, right? I've gone to the Union Hall and said, hey, tell me how this looks like for you guys. They're like, there's no, and you know what they said? There's no better work in America than a union, you know. And I'm like, oh, you guys are stoked? I mean, you guys worried about him not paying? They're like, there is no, and they are 100% on message. This is going to happen. Their guys are going to build it, and no one can build it better in the whole world. Not an ounce of doubt. From anybody can call the union, and they'll probably tell them the same thing. But if they had doubts, they would say something. By the way, I know guys who signed contracts to do business on the A's thing, and their contracts are not even in effect yet because they haven't gotten to that part of the project. So there's future money being spent. I don't know why people don't understand that there are invoices being handed out, and money's coming back, and they're getting paid. So you know, whatever else you want to think, money is being spent. So I wanted to say that, and then I was going to shut up and get out of you guys. Who wants to go next?
Let Booney go, because he's
Okay. Booney.
confident to bid on this one.
No, I'm good. I got not much more to say on that. I agree with everything. That's a great piece that Patrick presented. I'm with you on that, Pete. And everything that's being reported is based on emotion. Nothing's fact. Everything is speculative. It's a joke. It's tiresome.
And where are the sources? I mean, I know we had Bradbury in there for a source, and we had, you know, the different people who are always on the same message, right? But where are the secondary sources when you go out and you find the cab driver who knows somebody or whatever it is? Patrick, when you find that document that tells you about pricing, look, maybe their information is wrong, right? Maybe, but this is an actual verified source. That's how these people make their money.
Right. Yeah. And it took me 5 minutes of Google searching to find it.
Right.
Right. I mean, now my Google foo is strong. I'm a professional. This is what I do. Right. So I have the strong Google foo. I get it. But most people can Google search these days.
Right.
You know, it doesn't. And I would expect my hypothetical cub to, you know, I had a friend, the late Tom Hanrahan. You know, we didn't agree on much anything politically, but we were brothers. Incredible journalist. And Tom, when he was teaching, you know, I had two rules. Everything is always more complicated. Yes, even that. Yes. And everybody always has an agenda, right? Those are Pat's rules. My reporters got tired of hearing them. Mm-hmm. But the things you need to think of. The third one is Tom's rule. Ask the next question.
Yeah.
This guy never asked the next question. He didn't ask any questions. Right. He went in with an agenda. He decided he knew what the story was before he wrote it.
Boy.
You know, you don't know what the story is till you start reporting it. You may have an idea, you may have an angle, but I couldn't give you a number of stories in my career that went sideways from where I thought they were going to go.
Yeah.
You know, you sit down, you start talking to somebody, you do a search, you find a little more information, and suddenly, holy crap, this isn't the story that I thought it was. Or maybe it's just not a story at all. I've had to, you know, I'm a reporter these days, not an editor. I've had to call my boss more than once. Hey, boss, this just isn't the story.
Speaking of stories and bosses and things, I wanted to bring up what I think is a pretty straight up and down hard news piece. This is written by the Vegas Sun reporter, and his name is Casey Kiefer. I'm not sure if it says Case or Casey. Casey Kiefer. I sent that to you, Patrick, before. Here's the headline. Athletics say nothing stands in the way of Strip Ballpark opening in time for the 2028 season. And look, everybody's welcome to disagree with it, but this is a straight hard news piece. His job was to go report about the groundbreaking. He did exactly that and talked about what was there. And I think it's just, I don't know if you read it at all, Booney, but it's just a good piece. Any thoughts, Editor Richardson?
You know, he did a good job here. I mean, he's got the protracted amount of time that has passed since the A's first began exploring relocation in 2021, while also pursuing a new stadium in Oakland, is the cause of some skepticism. I mean, he's presenting both sides. I think he could have hit the opposing side a little harder than he did, because it is a pretty rah-rah go A's piece. But you know, I don't find a lot to dislike here. He did his job. I don't care for the headline. I think that the editor that wrote the headline could have written a little better headline. I don't know what I would have put, but
I would have taken the word nothing out of there and wrote that in a positive.
Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, athletics say strip ballpark opening in time for 2028 season. That's really all you needed. Yeah. You know, the headline's a little rah-rah. I don't think that you needed that. But, you know, they may have wanted a double deck head. I mean, so if they needed a double deck head, you stretch it. It's what you do. But I just don't find a lot to offend me in this one.
When you send your reporter, Casey's good reporter, you know, no questions there, but his job, and by the way, he works for Greenspun Media Group, right? I used to work for those guys. This is a hometown business. Everybody knows him. Everybody loves him. And he's got a job to do. And that's the report about this thing. If he's going to do investigative piece, that's not necessarily his job. And what he primarily does is like, this is where we're at. I was there. This is what I saw. And he reports that. And that's the kind of reporter he is, at least from most of what I see. I'm sure he writes other things that I haven't seen, but that's what he does, right? So you send him out to go do his damn job. And his job was, let's write about where we're at. Hey, groundbreaking. By the way, everybody's putting groundbreaking in quotes like it's not really a groundbreaking. Yes, it's a fucking groundbreaking. They've already been doing construction. I wanted to one more time dive into this thing. So congrats to Casey. I got to find out how to say his name. Actually, I'm going to have him on the show, everybody, so you can find that out. I know I've had... go ahead.
I just said awesome.
Yeah. I've had some state legislators on the show before. They're all stoked about it. I've checked in with them again to see what they're like. No, everything's good. The LVCVA, at least on the surface, saying everything's fine. I don't know of any big issues from anybody that I've talked to. Now, look, there's always doubts. And when Milwaukee built their ballpark, a crane fell, 3 dudes died, and it shut the whole thing down. Anything can happen, right? Vegas is full of failed projects. It happens. But when we look at this whole thing, I mean, I just... I don't understand why people sell themselves for this story, especially when it's so demonstratively moving forward. There's no construction going on. Pete, no one believes you. You don't have to believe me. Just go watch the fucking drone videos, and you can go back months in time. I'm going to let Booney talk about this because I don't get out of his way, but all you have to do is just open your eyes and watch these things. And if you don't want to, then you don't matter. You're just not part of this story. So Booney. Is there construction going on at that site?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think so, as far as what I've seen. But even to that point, I mean, every story you look at is cherry picking point after point. I mean, you even go back to the lease negotiations. What everybody seems to leave out as far as why the A's actually went to Sacramento is the lease negotiations. The city of Oakland wanted 2 things. They wanted $50 to $60 million over a 3-year period of times for the A's to squat at the Coliseum, and also wanted rights to the name Athletics. Everyone seems to leave that out, and why he actually went to Sacramento. I mean, who does that? Let's go to Damon Amendola for a second. His suggestion that Fisher is just an insecure trust fund kid. And I'm no Fisher guy, but let's talk facts. Fisher, obviously, yes, as we know, heir to the Gap empire. Forbes values him at around $3 billion. But he also made significant business moves. Bought the A's with Lou Wolf for $180 million in 2005. 2025, it's valued at $1.7 billion. He sought investors for financing plans, banks, Airmark, prospective partners to build the stadium rather than, as Amendola says, playing con. In fact, sources note Fisher and his family, as we know and as we talked about, to put a majority of the financing on themselves. And lastly, Alexander Marks, the school leader, right? The school group leader that Fisher figured out how to, in the article, how to keep costs exactly the same. Obviously with sarcasm and not praise. Marx meant how Fisher has not solved rising costs. But even Bay Area insiders, which they leave out, Oakland mayoral candidate Ignacio de la Fonte acknowledged that Fisher is a rich guy who uses his money to make money, which is neutral, factual description rather than a quote-unquote con. Call it for how you see it. Say both sides. There are two sides to the story. Just don't rely on just one sensationalistic type of narrative that makes zero sense.
Did he? Because I didn't watch that whole video. He called it a con.
Amendola called it a con. Called Fisher a con, yes.
That is defamatory. That's libel.
Yeah.
Now, he's a public figure, so that's a little harder to prove.
But he's not doing that at your paper.
Called him a con on several occasions.
Yeah, that is defamatory. That is libel. He can say it's an opinion. He's got some cover, but he's got some exposure there. If one of my you asked me what I would do, that right there, you're gone. You're out. Get out of here.
Susan Slusser is an award-winning Bay Area reporter, and she is citing a former, I can't say that laughing, former Nevada Senate member as being upset about this process. Doesn't name the senator, former senator. She walks up. This is an award-winning journalist, right? She comes into your office. Hey, boss man, here's my paper. Here's my source. No.
Yeah, well, number one, before I would grant an anonymity, and in a local paper, you don't do that, right? But before, the rule is, and it's not a law, but this is the way it works, right? Reporter comes to me and says, I've got an anonymous source. Who is it? The editor needs to know. You do not grant anonymity without knowing who the source was. This is one of the problems with Watergate, right?
Yep.
This is one of the, they even the editor didn't know who Deep Throat was. That never should have got out the door. Because you don't know if he's credible or not. So I've got to know who the source is. She won't tell me. Sorry, no, it's not running. I got to know who he is. And we've got to be able to verify what he told us another way.
Did you read any of Tim Kawakami's papers? I sent you his name. Did you get a chance to go through them?
Yeah, I did. He was obviously, if it's the guy I'm thinking of, trying to find it here.
Well, make sure you look and figure it out. Booney, go ahead and do you have anything to say on this stuff? Like Susan Slusser and some of these other reporters, Casey Pratt, these folks that have taken an obvious and repeated negative bent to this thing. What's your take on that, man?
It's never been about Oakland. It's never been about this. It's been about Fisher, and that's that. Susan Slusser last summer wrote a hit piece on the Oakland Ballers. One of the worst articles I've ever seen that was completely 1,000% false.
Yeah.
JT Snow, who is part of the coaching staff for the Ballers, she had a relationship with Snow. All she had to do was call him and confirm it. She did not. Instead, she wrote the article smashing the Ballers, calling the type of housing they're putting the flares in unlivable. All of it was false. Not one person from the city of Oakland came out in support of the Oakland Ballers against Susan Slusser. It's a joke. It's never been about Oakland. It's been about Fisher. It's a story of class that we've seen since the beginning of time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I found the Kawakami thing. I give him a little bit of a pass. It's an opinion piece, and it's obviously an opinion piece, right?
Fair enough.
You know when the reporter's name is up to Kawakami, the A's wobbly Las Vegas future and the signs of another John Fisher failure. Okay, it's an opinion piece. It's his opinion. I think he's full of shit. He's repeating the same crap that was in the Grunion piece.
Right.
But a little earlier. I can't get over misspelling your own name. I mean, it's just really, but But
there's also nothing original being said.
No, there's
and he's feeding people.
Yeah, I mean, this is clear back in February, but then I've got another February story here somewhere that you sent me from just a little bit later in that, yeah, and then here we've got one from the future of Las Vegas ballpark, revealed new A's ballpark blueprints and parking plans, and it shows the retractable roof they say can't be done. He's just, I get, and I'm guessing Kawakami is from Oakland.
Yeah, San Jose, South Bay.
Yeah, because it was the Athletic. So, I don't know exactly where it was from, but okay, I get that there's a lot of people in Oakland that
Okay.
are pissed off at John Fisher.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah, heartbreak. I get it. Yep.
You know, and so that kind of opinion piece coming from an opinion writer, I mean, in the thousands of columns I wrote in 30 years, I can guarantee I had some dumbass opinions. In some of when you got the opinion editor knocking on your office door saying it's deadline, you know, you got 5 minutes to turn out, you know, 1,000 words. You write what you gotta write, and sometimes you're pulling it out of your ass.
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes there is just content demands, you know, and that kind of thing. Okay, so I don't want to go too much longer because we've covered a lot of this stuff, and I want to give you guys a chance to wrap up. But I do want to cover one more name, because when you get an opportunity, and I should just mention Damon Bruce is one of these people too.
Oh.
If you get an opportunity to write for Sports Illustrated or even Newsweek as you build your base and all that kind of thing, right? Don't give up your integrity. Jason Burke is a guy that cannot write a straight news piece. And I will say this, so Pat doesn't have to say it. When I said, have you heard of Jason Burke? And he's like, oh my God, he doesn't even follow the A's story. And he knew that he was a questionable reporter. That is the impact that you have when you're not honest, is your peers diminish you, and then people aren't going to read unless they're desperate for your bullshit story, right? And you can only sell that story so many times before people are just going to walk away. So that's me talking straight to Jason, who blocked me when I corrected the first time I came across one of his articles, and I'm like, oh man, come on, you got to do a better job. And I pulled out my editor pen. Patrick, Jason Burke.
You know, I know of the guy. I don't know a lot of his work, but I have seen his name around on stuff that just makes you shake your head. And there's a lot of these guys in sports. There's a ton of these guys in sports, because there's a lot of things in sports that are subjective. But
do you have a requirement on saying, look, I am not a reporter. I'm not trying to tell you the news. I'm telling you, like, do you have to draw a line there?
Well, yeah, you do. I mean, I always made my reporters write a column a week. Okay. Because, again, we're back to, there's no such thing as objectivity, but you can be fair, right? So you write the column so that it's opinion about whatever you want, and it's on the opinion page, so we know that it's opinion. We even have a little tag up top, opinion. That gives people an opportunity to evaluate your biases, and then they can evaluate your coverage based on that. I was a conservative editor. There aren't many of us. There were people who hated my guts because I was, I'm conservative, and I'm not apologizing for that. But they couldn't, very rarely could anyone actually point to anything that was biased in a story I let come out of my newsroom. And I had conservatives and I had liberals working for me. There's a lot of these guys in sports, because every frustrated player is a sports writer, right? The guys that couldn't make it to college, or couldn't make varsity in high school, but who love sports, become sports writers, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But there in the last 15, 20 years, there's been this explosion of guys like Jason Burke, who they don't tell you it's opinion.
Yeah.
Right? They're I can't think of his name. He used to work for ESPN, and now he's a talking head. He was on MSNBC and got
Olbermann.
It's insufferable.
Olbermann. The guy was a great sportcaster.
He sure was, man. What a disappointment.
He was.
He was a great sportscaster.
Great.
But you've seen, as he started to get political on ESPN, there's just been this explosion. Everybody wants to be Olbermann. Be Costas. Be Costas.
Yeah, be Costas. Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, that's this whole thing. I guess my summation on it is, this is just, it's disappointing. It's not surprising from the Gurney ad. This is what they do. I've got stories on the stuff they've done to friends of mine. This is what they do. The hit piece journalism is what they do. When you see that Guardian flag, you just roll your eyes like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Because you don't expect any better. the Las Vegas Sun has done a great job.
All right, good. That's good to hear. I like it. Let me jump in here. I'm going to give Booney the last word. So when I look at these things, the reason why I do this is because it's not just the A's story, right? There's bullshit all around you. So when you want to learn more about, I'll bring my buddy, not Booney, but Boone Cutler on. He's a PSYOP dude, right? He'll talk about information operations with us again. We'll do the same kind of thing. If you see a story, you're like, hey, Pete, what do you think about this story? I'm glad to help you break it down. Here's some keys. Look for adjectives when you don't need them. Look for adverbs. Any adverb should be like what? Like hissy fit, right? Oh my God, what's going on here? That's a tell. It's a flag that you're being manipulated. I'm not saying you can't use adjectives. Sometimes you have to say there's a thorny bush. Okay, get it. That's not a problem. But when you see a lot of that stuff and you feel yourself getting inflamed, you're getting played. That's a good rule of thumb. And then if you're not sure, send it to somebody. Send it to me, peterbreakitdownshow.com. When I do this stuff, I'm trying to do it. I don't care what the outcome is. I don't care what you think about John Fisher. I really don't. I don't care about John Fisher. I'm not watching owner ball. I'm
Right.
watching baseball. So I don't care. I'm just here to say, don't get played. We all get played. We all consume news that's bullshit, and we believe things that aren't true. That happens to everybody because that's sort of the point. So I'm just trying to help out with that. If any of these people that we are critical of want to come on, I'm glad to give them an open floor. Anybody who knows me knows that's true. And I'll say this: anybody who wants to question my integrity, you're welcome to. You let me know when you think I've slipped, and if I've made a mistake, I'll own up to it. Right? But anybody who knows me, anybody who's worked with me, they know that, like, hey, Pete's going to tell you exactly what he thinks, exactly what he's heard. Sometimes I'm telling you what someone else has told me. Does that make me a liar or that guy a liar? Well, you have to decide that for yourself. There are people building shit out there on that site. You can say there's this proverbial, look at this guy, he's a Dickie from Las Vegas. He's a construction worker. Well, if he's on the site not working, let's let his employer know, because all the other dudes are working. They're driving around, they're doing things. You can watch them. Just go fucking watch the drone video. All right, that's me saying that I have to say, Booney, would you wrap us up?
Yeah, for me, I think the biggest thing that gets me upset and angry about this thing, and I'm to blame as well for it, is that politics has gotten brought into sports, right? Not just baseball, obviously, but sports in general. And sports matter because they are one of the last unifying forces in a fractured rule, right? When the whistle blows, first pitch is called, ball is snapped, whatever it is, it doesn't matter who you voted for, where you come from, or what side of the aisle you are on. What matters is the team, the game, the moment. Sports are about raw emotion, shared experience, and the kind of passion that doesn't care about political slogans. Unfortunately, that's not the case here. It offers escape, community, and the rare ability to bring strangers together in joy or heartbreak, right? Injecting the politics that we have seen in this saga into a sacred space doesn't create any type of awareness. It fractures unity. And that is exactly what has happened. So constantly the lies we hear and the attempt to break people up is what bothers me. And unfortunately, it has turned fans into enemies. And let sports be, what they were meant to be, a place to cheer, to feel, and to forget everything else for a few hours, man. So, this isn't, escapism. It's survival. So that's where this whole saga bothers me a little bit. It's that it's turned into something more.
Yeah. Everybody go check out Locked On A's if you're an A's fan. Booney does great work. You just saw that in passion thing. Booney's all passion. There you go. I used your line for you. Booney's all passion. And Patrick, what do you want to plug?
I don't really have anything to plug.
Right.
I'm
just looking good and living good. That's it.
Yeah, what I got to echo what Booney said. Just get out there and enjoy sports.
Right.
Yeah.
Take in a baseball. Go to a little league game. You want to enjoy baseball? Go take in a 12U game.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a ball.
Yeah. And then as I wrap this thing up, insert Damon's call to actions all throughout his video here, so you guys can go look at his stuff, because, God damn it, he needs some help. So make sure you guys go subscribe to his stuff, even if you don't like it. All right. I'll see you all later. I'm not going on vacation, so you're not going to see a lot of me the next week, but there is a show coming up. Thank you all very, 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 very much for this. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
I'll
guys.
see you guys in a sec.
Have a good one.